I remember the day she arrived, Cozbi. Her name still sends a shiver down my spine. She wasn't just any woman, she was a princess of Midian, draped in beauty, ambition, and danger. Her arrival in the Israelite camp didn't go unnoticed. From the moment she stepped into the camp, it was as if a shadow had fallen over the people, though they couldn't see it yet. I saw her with my own eyes, a woman whose beauty hid something far darker. She was no stranger to power or manipulation, and she wasn't here by accident. Cozbi was part of a larger scheme, a calculated attempt by the Midianites to bring down the nation of Israel. If she couldn't strike them on the battlefield, she would destroy them from within. It began subtly at first. The Israelites had camped near Shittim, just across from Jericho. They were on the brink of entering the Promised Land, and tensions were high. But instead of holding fast to their God, many of the men found themselves drawn to the Moabite and Midianite women like Cozbi. Cozbi wasn't just any woman. She was sent with a purpose, a venomous allure, to seduce the leaders of Israel and lure them into sin. It was brilliant in its simplicity: turn their hearts away from God, and the rest of the nation would crumble. It wasn't long before she caught the eye of Zimri, one of the leaders of the tribe of Simeon. He was smitten, completely captivated by her beauty and charm. But it wasn't just about lust. Cozbi had something more sinister in mind. She wasn't simply leading Zimri astray, she was leading him, and through him, Israel, into rebellion against their God. I saw them together, Zimri and Cozbi, as bold as daylight. They didn't hide their relationship. They paraded it through the camp like it was some great display of defiance. And in many ways, it was. Cozbi represented everything God had warned Israel against: idolatry, paganism, and a complete rejection of his covenant. But it wasn't just the sin of sexual immorality that plagued the camp. Cozbi brought with her the gods of Moab and Midian, Baal of Peor. The men of Israel, Zimri included, began to bow down to these foreign gods, offering sacrifices, indulging in feasts and rituals that were an affront to Yahweh. What shocked me most wasn't the sin itself. After all, people can be weak, but the brazenness of it. Zimri, with Cozbi at his side, marched right into the midst of the Israelites, to the entrance of the tabernacle, as if to flaunt their defiance in the face of the Almighty. They didn't care. They weren't hiding anymore. This wasn't just a private act of rebellion, it was a public declaration, a slap in the face of everything God had commanded. But God wasn't blind to what was happening. Even before Zimri brought Cozbi into the camp, a plague had broken out among the people. Thousands were dying, and it became clear that God's anger was burning against Israel. Sin had entered the camp, and with it came death. I'll never forget the moment when Phinehas, the grandson of Aaron, stepped forward. His eyes were filled with a fire I had never seen before, a righteous anger that could not be quenched. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed a spear and followed Zimri and Cozbi into the tent where they had gone. And in one swift motion, Phinehas drove the spear through both of them, pinning them to the ground. It was over in an instant, but the shock of it rippled through the camp. People gasped, some in horror, others in awe. But immediately, the plague stopped. It was as if Cozbi's death, along with Zimri's, had cut off the curse that was spreading like wildfire through Israel. In total, 24,000 people died that day because of what Cozbi and others like her had brought into the camp. 24,000 lives snuffed out because Israel turned from their God to worship the idols of Moab and Midian. Cozbi had played her role well, sowing the seeds of destruction through seduction, and the cost was paid in blood. Cozbi's story is one of the ultimate betrayals, not just of a man, but of an entire nation. She came under the guise of love, but her heart was filled with treachery. Her actions didn't just lead to Zimri's downfall, they nearly brought all of Israel to ruin. It's a reminder, etched in our history, of the dangers that come when we allow our desires to lead us away from God's truth. The lesson is clear: no matter how beautiful or alluring the temptation, no matter how harmless it might seem, when we turn from God's commands, the consequences are severe. Cozbi's legacy is one of destruction, of lives lost, of a plague that ravaged the people, and of a nation that came dangerously close to annihilation. And so we remember her as one of the bad girls, not as a victim, but as a catalyst for rebellion. Cozbi, the princess of Midian, played her part in one of the darkest chapters of Israel's history. Her beauty was a weapon, her seduction a curse, and her name will forever be associated with the fall of the men who followed her into sin. That was the cost of Cozbi's allure, death and destruction. You've just uncovered one of the most pivotal stories in our Bad Girls of the Bible series, where we dive deep into the choices that shaped history. Don't let the lesson stop here. Like this video if it gave you a fresh perspective, share it with others who need to hear these powerful truths, and subscribe to follow the rest of the series. Each story will challenge you, inspire you, and strengthen your walk with God. Join us on this journey of faith, where every decision counts.